Welcome to Causes Getting Attention, a digital marketing podcast for nonprofits. I'm your host, Jason Birch, and here's a little taste of what you're about to listen to. Enjoy.
When the Sierra Club Foundation sends an email promoting their vehicle donation program, they see a 2,900% increase in website traffic.
Welcome to our first episode of Causes Getting Attention, where we interview nonprofit marketers on how they are leveraging digital channels like email, social media, or content marketing to reach their organization's goals. In this episode, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Justin Ruffier, Director of Marketing at CARS, one of the largest vehicle donation organizations in the country. Founded in 2003, CARS partners with over 3,500 nonprofit organizations to help expand their fundraising efforts by providing additional revenue source for their cause. Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and for agreeing to share some of the really actionable marketing stories that you have for us.
It is my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
So let's begin with how you got started in marketing and then how you eventually ended up working for CARS.
Perfect. Let's start at the beginning. I graduated from the University of Oregon in 2005 with a marketing degree. It's more of a business degree with a concentration in marketing. And like many people graduating in business, I kind of got sidelined into sales. I ended up finding some easy sales jobs and was in the sales realm for about 6 years at a few different companies. And I actually think for many marketers that starting in sales or having a degree of sales background is extremely helpful. Of course, sales and marketing really go hand in hand, but marketing is about crafting a message and kind of getting people excited about your product or your service. And then, of course, the sales part is really that conversion and trying to capture that marketing message and turn that into revenue. So a few things that I learned in sales, I was really in a few positions where I was on the phone. And being able to communicate on the phone is extremely important because, aside from emails, phone communication is typically probably how we communicate with our partners and clients the most frequently. So getting really good talking on the phone, I think, really helped my ability to communicate messages to our partners. And I excelled in sales. I had a really good time doing what I was doing, but I always really kind of had a knack for the marketing side of it. And after a few years in sales, I kind of bounced around in my career and traveled around a little bit. And a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I ended up actually doing some real marketing work. I joined G-Commerce Solutions, which is a digital marketing agency in Park City, Utah. I was a part-time ski instructor and a full-time digital marketer, living the dream, as you can imagine if you're a aspiring ski bum. It was a pretty nice few years. And I was really excited to really start to use my marketing degree. Like so many of us, you graduate with one thing in mind, one profession in mind, and you don't necessarily get that right out of college. And so after my sales experience, going into marketing was really exciting for me. I went into G-Commerce as an account manager. And as an account manager, I really gained a well-rounded knowledge set of marketing in general. We kind of had a saying as account managers, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And to be honest, I didn't really like that phrase because I did want to be a master of my craft. And so I really took it upon myself to learn digital marketing and try and learn what I didn't know. And I think that has really helped me accelerate my career because not only can I speak to a lot at a high level, but I've also invested the time and knowledge into learning how to do it. It's one thing to say, let's do an email campaign for this partner. It's a completely different thing to build a brand new email template, load that into MailChimp, for example, pull an email audience list, segment it to the proper audience, load that list, send some drafts, make some changes, add some conversion tracking to the email, and then send the email. There's a lot more that goes into it, as you can imagine. And so I wanted to be someone who didn't just talk to everything at a high level, but actually was able to get my hands dirty and do it myself. And for new marketers, I would say that would be a great place to start, is take an interest in everything that you're doing. Don't just take it for granted that you know what social media is and you can speak to it, but actually create your posts, schedule the post, boost the post yourself, select what audience you want to do. Even if you aren't in a position where you need to be doing that, you can still experiment and play around with it. I've created test pages in Facebook just so I can create some posts and see how they look and how they act. And so that would be one tip that I have for new marketers, is really try and do what you're talking about. And once you start doing that, you're going to get a much deeper level of understanding. And so many marketing channels really connect, and the strategy of marketing ties into so many other channels that if you start getting really good at one channel, chances are you're going to have more exposure into using that strategy outside that channel and starting to broaden your expertise. And so that's I would say one big takeaway that I have from G-commerce as an account manager is don't just get complacent in being able to talk to it. Actually try and learn how to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And that actually, I think, was one reason that I decided to leave G-commerce. I was there for about 2.5 years, and one of my clients, a hotel out in San Diego. So I was at G-commerce for about 2.5 years, and I was actually approached by one of our clients. G-commerce specialized in hospitality, and so I was working with about 20 different hotels across the country. And one of my clients, who I'd been working with for about a year, San Diego Beach Hotel, approached me, and they were losing one of their people, and they asked if I was interested in working at a hotel. Well, I decided that it's an appropriate move to go from a snowy mountain town in Utah to a coastal city in San Diego. So they made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I moved off the mountaintop and ended up in San Diego with an oceanfront view for my office. So not a terrible trade. And I was there for about 2.5 years, and I was in a director of marketing position. And this was a really unique position and a unique opportunity for me, because I was really kind of the solo marketer at the organization. I worked directly for 2 hotels. We had a great staff, great management team, but I was the only person really working marketing. And as a manager, without anyone directly under me, it was interesting because I had the ability and opportunity to make decisions and put things into motion, yet I was really the only person who was doing the projects. So as you can imagine, and many nonprofits out there probably sympathize, we were understaffed, or my team was understaffed, and so being in a position where I had to do everything myself, I really learned how to create a good plan and prioritize and really try and execute efficiently. You know, when you think about very cohesive marketing campaigns, you're not just talking about creating a tagline and then making a social post or an email, doing an email blast. It's much more encompassing than that. You're talking sometimes paid search, you're doing print materials. We have a physical location at the hotel, so we would make posters and banners. We would make landing pages and create different offers that surround this concept. And so it became a lot of work very quickly when you want to do a really good campaign. So I was in that position for about 2 years. I learned a lot because I was in a position where I was getting my hands dirty. I was doing it myself.
You were executing it. You were the executor.
Exactly. And I would also I would set benchmarks ahead of time, something that I think all marketers should do, even if you just have to throw a wild guess out there. If you're going to run a photo contest, try and guess how many participants you're going to get. So that way, at the end of the contest, you can not only gauge your estimate, but you can actually start to measure those results. Some forms of marketing initiatives lend themselves to tracking a lot easier, such as a photo contest. How many people signed up? How many photos did you get? How many votes or engagements did you get? And that's something that's easily trackable. So you can set some benchmarks during these campaigns, and then at the end of it, you get to review your work. One of the reasons, so I was there for about 2 years, and then I ended up moving on to CARS, which stands for Charitable Adult Rides and Services. And as you said, Jason, we're the largest nonprofit vehicle donation provider in the country. We are a nonprofit ourselves, and we support about 3,500 other nonprofits across the country. And one of the reasons that I decided it was time to move on from the hotel was it was kind of that solo environment. Digital marketing especially moves so quickly. Technology and innovation is happening so quickly these days that I wanted to surround myself with a marketing team and other experts in this field that I could continue to learn from. When I was at the hotel in a solo position, I really had to lean on additional resources and lean on my network to stay on the cutting edge. So I really expanded my LinkedIn network. I played on Twitter a lot. Twitter is one of my favorite social media channels because I can. Yeah,
I absolutely love it.
And that's actually how you and I began a discussion about this podcast. Was you reached out through Twitter, and I responded, and we started a dialogue, and
it's
here we are.
It's amazing the power of a DM, a direct message. It is amazing what you can do with that.
Although I don't know how quickly I responded. I think I get a lot of those random or automated spam responses for DMs. But I usually check DMs and spam and junk folders at least on a weekly basis because you never know what's going to come through there.
What about the message that I had sent over that just jumped at you and you're like, man, I want to be a part of that?
You know, for me, it's as I was saying, it's really about the network. You don't need to surround yourself with a team in order to learn marketing principles. And what I really love about Twitter is I consider Twitter access to information. You can find blogs, you can find articles, you can find podcasts, webinars, research topics. In many cases, I go to Twitter to just see what new information is out there, and their use of hashtags makes it really easy. Hashtag digital marketing, hashtag email marketing, and hashtags are really conversations, so it allows you to tap into a specific conversation. And when you reached out, it was an opportunity to connect with other marketers. It's an opportunity for other marketers to join our network and engage in dialogue with us. And that's one thing that I feel differently about with for-profit versus nonprofit, is I feel the nonprofit industry is a more closely tied network. People are generally working for positive change in the world, whether it's animal support groups or environment or social change. People are passionate about something, and they are dedicating, in some cases, their career and their lives to this cause. And so you reached out and an opportunity to help fellow marketers and other people in nonprofits. It was an exciting opportunity for me.
Oh, I'm very happy that you accepted it. So how long have you been at CARS now?
I've been here almost 2 years, so I'm still fairly new at CARS, but I've had an opportunity to really develop my team. I came into a situation where we had some great leadership in the marketing department already. I currently manage a team of 6. And we have one of everything. We have a search specialist. We have a communications specialist who does a lot of our content development and writing. We have a graphics designer. We have an email marketing specialist who does a lot with social media as well. And I had the opportunity to hire 2 of them. And really, I took a look at, what makes a strong marketing team. And I tried to kind of fill in the gaps of what is our team strong at? what do our nonprofit partners need from us, and what do they expect from us, and how can we develop a team that is going to best suit our customers' needs. And we talk a lot about company culture here and team development here because, like many nonprofits, you don't always have the budget and the resources to go out and get the highest talent. Talent can be expensive. And so we've come at it from a slightly different approach. First and foremost, we value culture fit. You have to. We have two words here. You have to understand these two words in order to work at CARS. You have to understand gratitude. We survive completely on donations and heartfelt gifts from donors. And so we not only express gratitude to each other, but we express gratitude to our donors for their support and for their passion. And margin is the other word that you have to understand. We operate on very thin margins. We return about 80% of what we generate back to our nonprofit partners. And as a nonprofit ourselves, that 20% is used for operations, and then whatever's left is reinvested back into the community. We operate a program called On the Go, which provides transportation solutions to seniors around San Diego County. So we also have a cause that we directly support as well.
Mm-hmm. So you had mentioned those thin margins. What other challenges do you and your team face, that so many other nonprofits face outside of that?
Very good question, Jason, because I think, we're in a position where we work with almost 3,500 active nonprofits across the country. And every nonprofit is unique in one way or another. We work with some of the leading national veteran support groups, all the way down to maybe a local humane society or a historical society that has one or two volunteers that work part-time. And so we're in a position where we have to meet everybody's needs. We want to support all of our partners. We want all of our partners to see success and see the level of fundraising that they're capable of generating. And so one of our challenges is we provide a lot of support. We provide free complimentary support to our partners in the form of marketing support, graphic design. We will write email copy for our partners and develop social graphics. We will even jump in the back end of a website and help them fix something if something's broken. So we've had to really tailor our recommendations to fit a variety of different partners. We've created a few concepts to help us do that. And that, I think, is as a marketer, that's one of the more exciting things about marketing, is being able to wear many different hats and look at many different situations and scenarios. But it's also extremely important to tailor your recommendations to fit their needs and their opportunities specifically.
Mm-hmm. And can you give a little bit more specific information on some of those concepts that you guys have developed? I think the other day when we were speaking, one of the things that really jumped out at me at least was the 3 out of 5 best practices strategy.
Yes. So we send quarterly marketing guides to all of our partners. All 3,000 partners receive content and strategy from us on a quarterly basis. Now, the idea of sending one marketing piece and having it resonate with 3,000 different people or different organizations is not necessarily realistic. The top leading nonprofit that generates $500 million a year in fundraising has different needs and opportunities than one that generates $10,000 a year in fundraising. However, the marketing channels people use to promote really don't change very often. It's their strategy that changes. So we took a look at what we were recommending, and it turns out we're really recommending about 5 different marketing channels to everybody, but we're tailoring our recommendations. So we came up with this concept of the do 3 of 5. If you can have your program represented in 3 places at once and 3 places at all times, you're going to give yourself a chance for success. So we always outline the top 5 things that you can do from a marketing perspective to be successful. One thing we always say is make sure your donate options, donate now, or other ways to give are in a very easy to find place. Website placement for your program is crucial. We like to say if your donor can't find this in 3 clicks or less, they're probably not going to donate. They may go somewhere else to donate or may not donate altogether. So first you want to make your program visible and easy to find on your website. Social media is always a channel that we recommend because it's very inexpensive if you want to do paid advertising. It's free if you want to use it organically. And most people know how to use Facebook for general posting, and to do business style posting really isn't that much different from using it personally. So social media is a recommendation that we like to make because it's easy and everyone can do it. However, social is not always the most transactional platform. You don't always get trackable revenue through Facebook. It's great for engagement, it's great for awareness, but it may not be the right platform to really drive that bottom line revenue. Email marketing is one that we really like to recommend. Again, this is a tailored recommendation because not every nonprofit has a strong email database. We work with the St. Vincent de Paul organization. We work with them nationally and about 400 of their councils throughout the country. Great organization. We love working with them, but they don't have the strongest online presence. They're really a grassroots kind of organization, and they're out in the fields. They're driving change, and so they're not the most focused on their online presence. And so email marketing, while they are a huge national organization, they may not have that database. The Sierra Club Foundation, however, environmental group out of San Francisco. They have 64 chapters throughout the country. You may have a local Sierra Club chapter in your area. Mm-hmm. They do email marketing extremely well. Very large database, very passionate followers, and so some of these recommendations, both are national foundations. One works, one doesn't. Another recommendation is print advertising. To take St. Vincent de Paul again, not necessarily the strongest online presence, but they have a lot of churches and they have a lot of brick and mortar locations throughout the country. Print advertising actually does work very well for them. We invited one of our local contacts here in San Diego into the CARS office, and we really just had a great conversation. It was about 2 hours, and we were just trying to better understand St. Vincent de Paul and their customers, their donor base, and how they operate. And once I heard that they get about 1,000 visitors, 1,000 members coming through one church on a weekly basis, right away that signals, how about some print advertising? There's bulletin boards, there's flyers, there's programs. Print advertising when you have 1,000 visitors a week, and there are thousands of churches across the country. So while they may not have an email database of 1 million, they get 1 million people walking through that can see these print materials. And the last of the 5 recommendations we typically make is about the nonprofit Google grant. Jason, you and I were actually talking about this earlier, and nonprofits have access to $10,000 a month with the Google grant. And I think you're going to discuss this in another podcast later on, but great opportunity for partners or for nonprofits to get access to online impressions. This puts you at the top of Google, gives you the opportunity to compete. There's restrictions to it, but it's one of my favorite recommendations because it's free. It does take a little bit of expertise to set it up. However, Google offers excellent support and express options where they will actually do a lot of the work for you. So we have these 5 strong recommendations. We have a lot more recommendations, and when we get into an in-depth conversation with one of our partners, we don't just limit it to these 5. But when we're speaking broadly to 3,000 partners, we use the choose 3 of 5, be represented in 3 areas at once, because that really does give you an opportunity for success. It's not putting your message only on one channel, you're able to spread out that message and reach different audiences on different channels.
I love it. And I think, a counter to that is you don't want to be involved in too much at once. I know so many people that spread themselves so thin and they see the new trends or the new data and they want to jump on it. We got to jump on chatbots. We got to jump on virtual reality. And then other aspects of their marketing starts to fail a little bit and they don't really have a direct ROI that they can point at and say, this is what's driving the engagement. This is what's driving actual revenue through the doors. One thing that I would like to circle back with regards to email marketing in the Sierra Club, you had shared a really crazy stat with me. Can you go into depth with that? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, and we're actually getting ready to send out our fiscal year Q3 marketing guide next week. And we always have a piece in there about best practices. And what we do is it kind of revolves around the 5 best practices. And we like to do a spotlight on one of those marketing channels each quarter and go a little bit more in depth with it. And this quarter, we did a spotlight on the Sierra Club Foundation and their email marketing efforts. I think the stat you're referring to is when the Sierra Club Foundation sends an email promoting their vehicle donation program, they see a 2,900% increase in website traffic the day that email sends. And it's actually pretty exciting because the email is not just a one-day impact. It impacts their revenue for about 18 days on average. So they send one email, they get the massive spike in traffic, which really lasts for about 3 days. About 80% of their donations from that email occur within the first 3 days, but they get donations. It really fills the pipeline of interested donors, and people are still donating 2 to 3 weeks after that email.
That's insane. So does the Sierra Club have a pretty established email list?
They do. I don't know exactly what it is. It's probably in the 1.5 million range,
Oh, wow.
Which also is why it is successful. However, I think there's a couple other reasons it's really successful. Sierra Club Foundation, great grassroots organization supporting the environment. And when you think about donating your vehicle, although I'm not sure many people actually do think about donating their vehicle unless they have a vehicle that's not running or has been sitting in the front yard for too long. But part of their mission is to clean up the environment, and getting these older vehicles off the road really is in alignment with their mission. So this is a great fundraising opportunity not only to generate revenue for their cause, but it ties directly into helping support the environment. And one of the biggest changes that we've made, we've been working very closely and collaborating with Sierra Club to send emails for a while now. But recently we started really using testimonials and social proof in their emails. We have our Director of Partner Development, Kathleen Walters, here at CARS. She does a great job reaching out to donors and really having great conversations with the donors and getting testimonials out of them about why did they choose to donate their car to the Sierra Club? How was the experience? And we love getting customer feedback and donor feedback. That's something we really try and take into consideration with everything we do is, how is this going to impact the donor? Is this something that's going to be a good thing for the nonprofit, something that's going to help the donor out? And so we started using this concept of social proof in emails, and we would take these stories that Kathleen would curate with actual donors and tell the real stories of real donors. And, when you think about grassroots activists, it's a very close-knit community. And if you tell the story about one person donating to the cause, and here's why they did it, and here's their experience, it really resonates with other people, and it really helps connect your donor base. And we've seen that type of content really works well for them.
Excellent. And so for an organization that might be listening, or someone who might be listening who doesn't have an established list, what's one actionable tip that you could give them to kind of start building and growing that audience?
Very good question. And this is actually something that's been prevalent throughout my marketing career because it's 2018 and email marketing is still extremely important. One of the reasons I love email is it's informative and it's transactional. You can write a little story and communicate a fairly robust message by email, but you can also have a call to action and encourage people to donate. So not only can you share a good message, but you can actually get revenue and get people to support your cause through email. When you think about social media, you can't really have a really long story in social unless you're linking to a blog or, a landing page. People also don't typically donate through social or purchase through social quite as much as they do other channels. So email marketing is a great channel that I think everybody should use. However, unless you have an email database or a database that can produce, it's not going to be an effective channel. So I always say do the best practices, and you can always do some Google searches. Again, you can hop on Twitter and you can look at email marketing best practices, how to grow a database. You may have a lot of emails already. You can go through your website contact forms, how many people have reached out to your organization just through your Contact Us page in the past year. You could potentially take those names and add them to an email list. You can segment it, so you can put a category and say contact form, so that way later on you can segment your list. If you are in a position where you're developing an email database, I would recommend capturing as much information as possible. Get the email address, first name, last name, city, state, zip code, anything that you can get, because 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, you may have an opportunity to send a specific message to a specific audience. But if you don't have that data, you can't really segment your list.
Right. And the power of segmentation is just incredible, especially when it comes to email channels.
Exactly. And when you start getting into A/B testing and sending different messaging to different audiences to increase conversion and optimize your channels, that's where you need access to those other fields within the database. And the best practices would be make sure your email sign-up form is front and center on your website or an easy location to find. You can always talk about the benefits of the user signing up. So what type of content are you going to send out? Are you sending out, can they expect weekly newsletters? Or are you going to be sending out gifts and promotions? Are you sending out, upcoming events? So let the user know what they can expect to receive when they receive these emails. And then, so that could be a landing page. Maybe you make a nice looking landing page that the primary objective is to capture emails. You could promote that landing page using your nonprofit Google grant. You could promote that landing page on social media. You can get that front and center on your website. So anyone going to your website will see that and be enticed to sign up. So there are a few things, but again, it's not one thing. It's not only put it on your website. And really, in order to build a robust and kind of a diverse email database, you want to actively be asking for email addresses, and you want to be actively adding to that list from multiple sources, website forms, social media. If you can, kind of cross-pollinate, take your social media followers and make sure they're following you on email as well. So that I would say, do a little bit of research, but do a very well-rounded approach to developing that database.
Right. You're also fighting against that churn rate too, the rate at which people are unsubscribing. So not only do you have to build to continue to grow your list, but you also have to grow it so that it surpasses that churn rate, so that your unsubscribe rate doesn't outweigh your new subscription rates, so that you always have a list that's fresh and growing as opposed to stagnant and starting to decrease in size. One of the things that I think a lot of marketers are obsessed about, but maybe don't understand how to quite leverage it, is data. And you had mentioned A/B testing. How is CARS leveraging data in marketing to really get those results for their partners?
Great question, and I think this is a great topic for not just nonprofits, but marketers in general, because it's no secret that data is really on top of everyone's mind these days, because now access to data is a little bit easier to come by. We've really made a dedicated effort in the past 2 years, and this may correlate to me being here, but we've made a dedicated effort to really capturing as much data as possible. Since I've been here, I've added Google Analytics to our website. I've set up tag manager tracking for our Google AdWords accounts. I set up event tracking. I try and put tracking on every button on our website to better understand what are users clicking on. We look at phone call data. We have 2 call centers here. CARS has about 80 employees total. We operate 2 call centers, one here in San Diego and one up in Medford, Oregon. And we handle about 500,000 phone calls a year.
Wow.
And we process about 100,000 donated vehicles a year. A lot of data. But again, you have to, in some cases, set up the data so it's accessible. So I try and look at phone data. I try and cross-reference that to donation data. I speak with our data analyst in the call center quite frequently to understand what's happening on the website and how does that correlate to what's happening in the call center, and what's the impact on donations look like. So it's not necessarily there. You can find data in many places, but in many cases, you may actually have to set it up in a way that you can export it, or you can make decisions based on it. And some of the challenge is I just named 5 different data sources and platforms to pull from, and then you're in some cases comparing apples and oranges and bananas and trying to, make sense of it all. Ideally, we would have one system or multiple systems that all talk to each other and share common metrics and data across one platform, but that's really just not realistic. In many cases, you're probably pulling from Facebook Insights. You're taking the data that's native to Facebook and you're analyzing that. You may have that synced up with your Google Analytics. So when someone on Facebook performs an action that goes to your website, now you can see that pass through of data. So now you can compare what Facebook is telling you with what Google Analytics is telling you. There's always whenever you're going from platform to platform, there's always a degree of inaccuracy. Whenever you're crossing domains, there's a degree of inaccuracy. So you really kind of have to analyze everything with a grain of salt. Just because one platform is telling you one thing doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. I have found that the native platform is typically the most accurate. So if you send an email in MailChimp, the MailChimp tracking is going to be more accurate than your Google Analytics tracking. Because someone clicks on that email, well, that's a MailChimp email, so that's going to be tracked more accurately than that person going through their Safari browser on a tablet, ending up on your website for 2 seconds and then leaving. How does Google Analytics track that? Is that a bounce? Does that even show up as a visit? You don't necessarily know. So understanding how the data works is very important, but it's absolutely crucial to be making data-driven decisions these days, and especially if you're doing any type of paid advertising, you can blow through a budget very quickly. There's a quote I love that says, 50% of my marketing is successful. I just don't know which half.
I have heard that. Yeah, that's a great quote. I love that one.
Yeah.
I see people get bogged down in the data though, and they chase these vanity metrics that just they're easy to track, but they don't really produce any meaningful outcome out of it. And it really, takes away from executing. And I think executing on the marketing itself is so much more important than just being bogged down by the data. But then at the same time, you're told that you need to leverage the data so your marketing is more efficient. So, how do you deal with something like that? Like, how do you parse out what data is actually making the right value for your organization?
That is very true. And even just looking at Google Analytics, let's say you're looking at what happens on a page. You have time on page, you have bounce rate, you have a number of visitors, you have exits and things like that. And you may see one metric that looks really bad. Maybe it's a really high bounce rate. But you have to take data into consideration. Look at trying to understand what is truly happening. Just because one stat doesn't look very strong doesn't mean that something bad is happening. You may have a really high bounce rate, but you may have a lot of conversions and your revenue may be up. So is a high bounce rate a bad thing? Maybe, maybe not. You may not have in some cases, when someone goes to donate to you, they go to a separate shopping cart. Well, that could be considered a bounce. So in that case, a high bounce rate may actually be a sign of high conversions because they're leaving your site to go to your donation page to contribute to your cause. So really trying to understand the story of what the data is telling you is helpful. And I always like to try and craft a narrative when I'm really digging deep into data. I try and understand not just the quantitative research, but qualitatively, what is happening in this situation. So we look at data as a kind of another layer in our decision making. It's a check and a balance. It prevents you from just saying, "Oh, I know what our donors want. This is what we're going to do." That's great if you have that level of understanding, if you've done surveys and you speak with donors on a frequent basis and you truly do know what they want. Take a look at the data and just confirm. Make sure that that is the right age demographic. They are 45 and older, or all of our donations really are coming from the state of California and specifically our local community. You may conceptually understand that, but you may also find that, well, all of our donations are coming from California, but they're not downtown San Diego. They're actually North County, San Diego, which is 30 minutes away. Well, that's interesting. That's not really where we thought our donor base was. So data can point you in the right direction. It can really help fine-tune your marketing and really help you optimize your results.
Mm-hmm. So use it as a tool to help you optimize the results, but don't lean on it too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't lean too much on your gut either. But I think it's a really a balance. It's almost kind of like an art form. I would like to think so. So looking forward in the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see the future of nonprofit marketing going?
Great question. And I try and attend conferences and trade shows, and I do webinars. I'm on webinars and read blogs, and I really just try and keep an ear to the marketing industry. And many of the recent nonprofit-focused conferences that I've gone to are really discussing the future of nonprofits. And we're actually just next week, on June 22nd, up in San Francisco, the CARS marketing team is going up, and we're holding a Futures Symposium. And in this Futures Symposium, we're inviting about 25 of our top partners and industry influencers, and we are discussing the future of the transportation industry and how that kind of correlates with nonprofits and fundraising. And since we operate in the automotive space and in vehicle donations, this is kind of on the forefront of us. If people stop buying cars and they stop using cars, we could be out of a business. And we contribute about $30 to $40 million a year back to nonprofits. And so a lot of nonprofits really rely on the sustainable revenue streams we have. So first thing I would say is, ask some questions, take a look at the future, try and predict what some of this innovation could do for your organization or for your industry. And that's why we're really having this meeting of the minds, is to try and understand. One of the topics is, things are going to start moving more towards rideshare and subscription models, especially in metro areas. And so as people start to adopt less expensive rideshare options, which are coming down the pipeline, people will sell their cars and they won't rebuy cars, and then there will be fewer and fewer vehicles in the market to donate. So I think it's important to really take a look at the future because for us especially, we are tied to the automotive industry and the innovation we can expect. I've also heard a few concepts about nonprofits really starting to band together a little bit more. And I think this is kind of an interesting topic, and I'd be interested to hear your take on this too, Jason. But I've heard a few different things. One, every nonprofit is different, and then I've also heard that all nonprofits are the same. And minor differences, but when you think about, let's say, a humane society, there could be a whole national network of humane societies, and in some cases there are. And the question would be, multiple humane societies in a similar location with a similar kind of purpose, let's say they're no-kill shelters, can they band together to do more and have a greater impact than just being a single entity with a smaller reach? And I think that's something that people are going to continue to talk about. And I'll just say one more thing here. Cause marketing is still a hot topic these days. Cause marketing is really the intersection of profit and purpose. And as consumers start to get more savvy and start to get more interested in supporting causes, they want to purchase from organizations that really have goodwill in mind. And so we are seeing more companies supporting nonprofits. And I think that's something that I'm really excited about, is that unification of for-profit and nonprofit working towards a common goal, united in a common vision. That's really exciting because now that nonprofit has the ability to compete a little bit better in a for-profit industry. So a couple things there. I think innovation with technology and marketing potentially could drastically change everything we do. I'm interested to see how nonprofits continue to collaborate with each other, and I'm interested to see, this greater use of cause marketing and intersection of profit and purpose.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere, I read somewhere that corporate giving and in the cause marketing space is up. It's an all-time high. So I think, as the economy continues to do well, I think these organizations are looking for ways to invest in these causes. But then you also have people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, who are just trying to solve all of these world problems. And there's so much money out there that's available. It's just, connecting those dots and, speaking to the right people. Kind of going to what you were saying about banding together, my perspective is absolutely. I think as long as the mission aligns, or, if they're complementary services, it just makes sense. I mean, like, look at media companies, for example. Media companies are conglomerates of websites, and they leverage each other's websites and audiences to get the virality of their content out there. Especially news organizations, when they push a news story, an update, it doesn't just go to one. It doesn't just go to CNN.com or Fox.com or wherever. It goes out to their network, their media network of hundreds of distribution outlets to just get the word out there and reach as many people as possible. And, with the internet being as important as it is today in the culture of information and consuming information and understanding that, I think organizations, nonprofits, have this opportunity to leverage each other's websites as a means to generate traffic for themselves and for the other organizations that they're working together with. So I think, absolutely being able to leverage those networks, I think that you were talking about earlier, is so important, is so crucial, especially as things become more competitive, as attention becomes more scarce and hard to retain. But I think there's opportunity out there as long as it's done thoughtfully, as long as the experience of the audience is positive, that the donors are always at the center of everything that you do, that it's not just you berating them, asking them for gifts constantly, but actually, going back to the email that you were talking about, giving them a narrative, giving them a story, telling them about how you're creating impact and how you're influencing change. I think that is probably one of the most important things you can do to try and bridge that gap and kind of overcome some of those challenges.
Absolutely. And I have another story for you along the kind of strategic partnership lines. One of our partners is St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And great organization. We really love working with them, and the type of work they do is just incredible. They don't charge their patients for anything. If you could imagine having a child who's battling cancer and then trying to come up with travel bills and travel expenses and really trying to work through that situation while having all these expenses would just be it would be a nightmare. And St. Jude does so much for not just the child but the family and the community. Really inspirational organization to work with. We've been working with them for about 2.5 years now, and they have a great corporate partner in Cox Automotive. Cox Automotive has a very strong media network. And we had a few conversations with Cox and with St. Jude, and it turns out, Cox Automotive actually, Cox owns Kelley Blue Book and Auto Trader. And after a few roundtable discussions, what a more perfect place to be represented on for vehicle donations than Kelley Blue Book. And Kelley Blue Book really supports St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So we had a few conversations, and it really it was looking like a win-win. Great opportunity for really all of our organizations to come together and work towards a common goal, and that was how can we support St. Jude even further? We've been working with Kelley Blue Book for about 8 months now. CARS helped develop a new vehicle donation option. So now, as of May 1st, when you are on Kelley Blue Book and you are pricing out your vehicle, when you get through to the evaluation option, you can either sell it, trade it in, or donate it. And when you click donate, you actually go to a website that we created, which is autogiving.org. And we have St. Jude featured at the top, but you can donate to any of our organizations. So not only did Kelley Blue Book allow us to put this great feature on their website, which benefits their users, it gives their users another service besides just selling their car, which can be a hassle and may not be the best opportunity for them, but it also benefits St. Jude and all of our partners. Within the first 30 days, we just finished our first month, and over 60 nonprofits have benefited from this new Kelley Blue Book donation feature. So CARS teaming up with Kelley Blue Book to benefit St. Jude and our network of nonprofits has been extremely successful. And of course, that's a pretty high-level strategic partnership, but even smaller organizations, I think, can take a similar approach. Look at your community. Who's supporting you in your community? How can you develop partnerships and relationships around town? Maybe you have a local print shop that would give you free print advertising. Maybe all you have to do is put a link to their website and trade some content and, share a little bit of exposure here and there, and maybe you'll get free printing. So, kind of think outside the box and think, who might want to support our cause? Who are we in alignment with? And then just get people in the room and just start throwing ideas against the wall, because you never know what can come out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because some people will put up a website and they'll say, okay, this is all I need to do to be successful. And then they wonder why, the donations aren't coming in or the revenue's not coming in. And, it's not enough to just show up anymore. Mm-hmm. You have to be active. You have to be reaching out. You have to be leveraging all of these platforms that allow you to get connected with people that is then going to spur kind of the ROI that you're looking for in your marketing.
Exactly, and you also need to add value to your customer, to your donor, or to your partner. I was actually just in Seattle this week at the SMX Advanced Search Marketing Expo. Excellent conference. This is my first year going, and had a blast. Seattle in the spring is beautiful, and this is the most high-level search marketing content I've ever heard. We had speakers from Google and Bing, and great speaker from Bing. He gave us the entire process of how Bing crawls websites. He told us that the crawler is a machine in Colorado, and talks about how frequently it crawls websites, and just got a great overview. But in one of our sessions, before the session was starting, I was sitting there chatting with someone that I had met next to me, and a girl in front of me turned around and she asked me a couple questions. And she works for Porch.com, and Porch.com is kind of a competitor to Angie's List. So it's kind of a review site, online reputation for home construction, things like that. And they are their investors are Lowe's, the home improvement company. And so she was in this position where she has a great partner with Lowe's, who's also an investor in theirs, but they weren't getting much support from Lowe's. It was kind of a one-sided relationship. And so we just kind of got to talking about, how can she help improve that relationship? And I gave her some ideas. I said, first thing you may want to try and build a strong advocate over at Lowe's. Get some people over there who really know who you are and see the value of this relationship. Having an advocate, whether it's an advocate at a third-party vendor, someone that you work with, or it's an advocate at one of your partners. We work with nonprofits. We try and build strong relationships within the nonprofit. So if we say, hey, can you make this update to your website? Someone there is able to get it done. So kind of the first tip I gave her was build some good, strong advocates over at Lowe's, people who want to help support you. And then I said, really try and insert yourself into their customer life cycle, into their customer journey. Find out, how can you add value to the Lowe's customer? And if you can start identifying where you add value to them, and you have an advocate over there that will speak on your behalf, that will show the presentation to the CEO or the director, now you're really starting to add value to that relationship. And now it's starting to look like a win-win situation. We had a great conversation. It was about 15 minutes, and we were just throwing ideas at her, and she was writing stuff down. And I love that type of brainstorming, because you can take some of these marketing principles and apply them to almost any situation or any industry. You just really, kind of take a process approach and say, what are the needs? What are the opportunities? And then you just kind of start putting ideas out there and say, how about something like this? Would this work? And then you just keep fine-tuning those ideas. And at the end of the day, in her case, hopefully, it's great growth from both of their organizations, and hopefully it leads to a very strong partnership for them.
Yeah, I love that. It has to be equitable. It has to be a partnership. Otherwise, why would Lowe's even want to be involved, right?
Right.
You're not going to get commitment from them unless you are creating impact and change for on behalf of their organization.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, create value. So I just have one other question. What advice do you have for new marketers that are jumping into the trying to figure out how to leverage all of these tools, all of this advice out there on the web to really create change for their organization and really drive their mission forward?
Very good question. And I'd like to try and answer this from an approach of, let's say you don't have any budget, and let's say you don't have a full team of expert marketers at your back. So let's say you're maybe newer to the marketing profession, or you're in a position where it's just you and you have a lot of work to do, but you still need to be able to do everything. One thing that we've been trying to do, like I mentioned earlier, I have a team of 6 here, so we have a decent sized team. However, there's a lot of work to be done. And one resource that we've been using a little bit more often is we've noticed that we need the ability to scale up work when we have larger projects that we want to do. So we've been trying to use freelancers a little bit more often. Freelancers this day and age for marketers, I think, is a great resource because typically you can find experienced marketers who are really not that expensive, that are willing to work part-time or on the side for less than you would end up paying a marketing agency. So look at Upwork, Fiverr, really any of those kind of freelancer options. You can find bloggers, you can find SEO specialists, paid search specialists, graphics designers. So if you're in a position where either you're new and you don't have the skills or you don't have the time to do it, consider looking at freelancers. That's a great way to really scale up the work without having to hire someone or hire an agency. So that's one thing that I think is really interesting these days and allows you to really have a strong marketing team. The other advice, the other things that I think new marketers should really be aware of is, I mentioned earlier, really try and focus on developing your network. People in marketing are very helpful. They are, in most cases, eager to help out, which I love. I love that about our industry. And, Jason, you and I have connected on digital marketing and nonprofits. And, this industry, they're just more than happy to help. So find people in the industry, whether you're just going on LinkedIn and searching San Diego digital marketing and following people, or going to groups and participating in groups and discussions. There's a lot of resources out there, and if you can build your network of people who can give you answers whenever you have to troubleshoot something, you can go to your network, or you can go to the Google forums and ask Google Analytics professionals for help, which I've done. Great way to solve more complex problems. But also, in addition to your network of professionals, expand your network of access to information. I love Twitter. Twitter gives you great access to information. You can follow blogs. You can follow people on Twitter. Twitter also gives you a lot of access to other free resources. You can find tutorials for almost anything on Twitter. So it's really, there's so much to know in digital marketing that it's not expected that everybody is going to know everything, but you need to know how to find the answer. You need to be able to learn what you don't know, especially with more complex topics like SEO and search engine marketing and analytics and coding and things like that. And speaking of SEO, I think it's important for everyone to try and understand SEO, try and learn how to do it, try and get a level of understanding with Google Analytics. These are platforms and techniques that really will help you throughout your entire career. And start using software and programs like Google Analytics or Moz Pro or SEMrush. A lot of these platforms offer free trials, or there's free services out there. Screaming Frog is an SEO tool that I use. That's a free option. So do what you can for free. There's a lot of free opportunities out there, and these are a great way to do a quick check on the health of your website. You can run a quick Screaming Frog search and see if there's a bunch of broken links and things like that. So it's a great way, great starting point. And then I think the last piece of advice I would say is really just get out get out in the industry, go to conferences, go to meetups or workshops or boot camps, attend seminars, try and actually get out there. It'll help expand your network. But the 2 days I spent in Seattle at the SMX conference, I learned more there than I did in the past 2 years of just kind of paying attention to search engine marketing. But that 2 days was like an infusion of knowledge that I didn't get in 2 years of just generally paying attention to it. So take the time to really go in depth with a few topics to really gain a better understanding. And conferences are a great way to do that.
That's amazing, actionable advice. And for anyone who's listening, go out there and start executing right now. Don't wait until tomorrow. Execute yesterday. Justin, thank you so much for taking the time again. Really appreciate you sharing your stories, your insight, and your knowledge in the industry. I really hope people are able to get something out of this and then start applying it to reach their marketing goals.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and good luck to everyone out there. You can find me on Twitter at Beach Marketer. My name is Justin Ruffier, and you can also follow me on LinkedIn.